So my name is Andres, Baking Steel Test Kitchen. Today, actually, we have a couple of things we're doing. We are going to make a bread and we need a name for it because we can't come up with a name for the free-form bread. So here's what it is, and we're going to send something to somebody. If we can create a cool name, we're going to send something to somebody that the name that we select, we're going to send you something cool. So after you see the recipe and the lingo, the vibe that we get from making it, let's create a cool name for it. So, and just drop it in the comments. Does that make sense? Drop it in the comments on YouTube or Facebook, wherever. We're going to go through all the comments, Instagram, you name it. When we come up with this cool name and we use it, we'll send that one person something really cool. So here's what it is. We're doing a free-form bread, a 24-hour free-form. That was one name that got vetoed, by the way. I said, how about free-form 24? Sound like I don't know. Didn't pass the muster. But we're going to make a 24-hour dough. We're going to ferment it for 24 hours. Then we're going to pull it out of this container and just free-form it onto our parchment paper, launch it onto our steel, and have this incredible rustic artisan bread in 24 hours. Really delicious, flavorful. It just needs a name. So help us get there. Let's do this, okay? Flour, salt, water, and yeast. These are our ingredients. So for us, we're using a bread flour like we do our pizza dough, organic preferably, and this is 400 grams. If you don't have bread flour, you can also use all-purpose flour. You could mix in a little bit of wheat like we did last week, or a little bit of spelt. Anything that you have, you desire, blends are really great. You could throw a blend of 5 grams or 50 grams of a spelt would be really good, delicious in this. Anyway, it's an overnight bread, so flour. We have our salt, which is a sea salt. Again, I add my salt into my flour, and I literally just whisk it up. Use my whisk. Just whisk it up. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my yeast, which is an active dry yeast. We're using 1 gram of yeast in this. It's a micro amount. You can see it is 1 gram, which is like 1/9 of those packets that we get. It's 1/9 of those. Those are 9 grams each. And now I whisk the yeast in with the salt. With me so far, skill level here is not very high. I'm still making it with passion. Passion is important. Okay? And my water. So the water this is actually 300 grams of filtered water. I drink filtered water, so I cook with it. Check your water supply wherever you live. Make sure it's clean, okay? If not, then just get a filter for it. And this is room temperature water, okay? Because I'm fermenting my bread at room temperature, so my water's room temperature. It's that simple. So I just pour it in. And now I take my spatula and I just kind of mix it in, let that water incorporate a little bit. And this is going to be a more wet dough than pizza dough, so it's going to be a little bit stickier. It's a 75% hydration, which is higher than our typical dough, but not extraordinarily high. Scrape it out. Scrape out your bowl. Take your bench scraper. Right here, boom. And now I'm going to knead this for maybe a minute or two. We put that screen down on the computer, sorry. Just a tiny bit. Yeah, there you go. And I'm just kind of kneading it here for maybe a minute or two, just pressing and scraping. Again, we're looking for a name for this bread, okay? So keep that in mind.
Scrape and bake.
Scrape and bake. That's a good one. How about shake and bake? No? 24 freeform? Can we do that? If that wins, I'm buying myself something nice. I'll be impartial too. 24 freeform. Think of that. It's a great name. So anyway, look at it. So this is it in about a minute, it's starting to get really, really sticky. So that to me tells me that the water's starting to incorporate really well into the flour and I can be done. I got all the clumps out of it. I've been pressing down, scrape my hands clean. I'm putting this right back into the bowl. And this is gonna be a little more wet than your typical dough. Right back into the bowl. I will cover this like this. For me, it's 11 o'clock now. I'm gonna leave this out till bedtime. So that's till about 8 or 9 o'clock. I'm gonna take this dough and put it into the fridge, just like this, okay? This is called the bulk of the dough, so we call it the bulk ferment. We start at room temperature, and then we go to cold, because cold dough is a little bit easier to work with than room temperature dough. A little less sticky. So we've done that. Let's pretend it's the next day and I'm going to take the dough out of the fridge. Cue the dough. This is the same amount. It's going to double in size and it's cold. Okay, so now I'm going to do the freeform 24. Trying to get that name in there. So grab a piece of parchment paper. I've been preheating my oven at 450 degrees for at least an hour because I've got my baking steel on my top and bottom rack and it's loaded, it's heated, it's hot, it's got a lot of heat in there. So now I'm gonna take my parchment paper. I like to dust the bottom with flour and semolina flour. There it is. Semolina flour, just kind of dusting. If you don't have these two, that's okay. I just use one or the other two. Take my dough, just kind of remove it out of here. And I'm going to divide this into twos. So I'm going to put it right down on my parchment. Remember, this is freeform 24. How do I want to cut this? I'm going to cut lengths. How's that? It's freeform, so I can do whatever I want, whatever I feel like, right? So I'm going to take this, just cut it. I've got these pieces of dough like this, almost like a baguette style. I'm going to coat both sides with flour. Again, my secret is to really dust these things nice with flour. These aren't even the same size, but they're close. Right? And I'm going to let these, because they're cold, it's still sticky. You can see, free form, right? Now what I'm going to do is just a little bit more flour. I'm going to throw this in my oven, which is baking at 450 degrees for, I think we said about 15 to 20 minutes, depending on the size and the thickness of them. So you want to get a timer and bird dog it, but I'm going to put these into the oven so I can use my peel. And these launch really easy with the paper, by the way, and the mess I made. I don't want to make a mess in my oven, so I keep it on the paper. I can use my bottom rack. Boom, slide them off. You can see that? Boom, at 450, no broiler, just convection heat if you have it. I'm going to let these things cook for I'm going to set my timer for maybe 10 minutes first. Let it go. At 10 minutes, I'm going to open the oven up, rotate these a little bit, spin them around, and then just so they cook evenly. And then if they're starting to get dark, I can add my bracelets. But I'm going to show you guys, because we're not going to sit here for 15 minutes as these bake. We made a few before class. You can see these are literally the same shape that we just cut out. These awesome, like rustic 24 freeform loaves. Great. After about 10 minutes, by the way, I can take my baking steel bracelets. I can place them on the hot steel. These can withstand the heat. I place them on the bread right on top. And that's going to prevent the bottom from getting too dark, right? And I can continue to bake, get a really nice crust on these things, a really nice color. You can even go darker than this if you'd like. But they're awesome. Freeform bread in 24 hours, and the flavor's awesome. I make this almost, by the way, this bread 2 or 3 times a week for my kids. They just devour this stuff. And it's actually pretty healthy. Let's break one open. Show you guys here. Just kind of rip it. Look at that crust. Look at that. Look at the holes. Isn't that beautiful? It's awesome looking. Smells amazing. Oh, man. Get some butter, some olive oil. We're off to the races.